to Serendipity Intended. My name is Tracy Ann, and I am working on day 23 of Junk Journal July 2025 challenge. Today's prompt is field notes, and I decided that I was kind of sort of going to go back to one of my favorite things, which is botanical. It just seemed to make sense for field notes, but I'm definitely going to do it with a twist. Now, because I've decided to use this book page for the background of this entire side, I'm going to go ahead and use the matte gel medium to adhere the pieces. It's faster than using art glitter glue, and it makes less of a sticky mess on my fingers than using a glue stick. So I just decided I would go ahead and do that. I had toyed with the idea of doing a background that was white like the opposite page, but I didn't have any book pages where I really liked the font. I wanted something that looked a little bit vintage, and so that's why I went with this one. It's light enough that I think it's okay, but it also has a little bit of color in it, which I feel like connects to the squares on the other side. So once I got the background completed, I then used my heat gun to go over it to dry it a little bit so that I wouldn't have to wait as long to work on the page. That's what I'm doing here. Now, even once I dried it with the heat gun, it wasn't completely dry, but since the next part that I was going to work on involved the element that I was going to add to the page, I decided it could just air dry for the rest of the time. So what I wanted to do was create a sort of specimen card, but because this journal is supposed to be a little fun and also a little boho, I decided to make that Mad Hatter illustration be the focal point for my specimen card. Don't worry, I do work in some botanicals as well, but I just thought it would be sort of a fun, quirky way to approach the prompt. Now, a good portion of this video is me just doing the same thing on the front and the back of what will eventually be the specimen card. So I've sped up some of those sections even faster, because once you've seen me do it once, you pretty much have known everything that I'm doing for the rest of the time. I always get impatient at this point in a project because it's just more of the same, and I just want to get it finished so that I can move on to the next step. I have to remind myself to kind of take it slow and take my time. This is a little bit labor intensive to cut out the center. The advantage to that is that I was able to create a specimen frame that was exactly the right size for my focal point. Then I had a whole stash of labels, some with writing on them, others that weren't, and I just played around until I came up with an arrangement that I thought looked good and felt like it could be on a specimen card. Oh, I decided here that I really liked the number, but I preferred the round label, so I just got a stamp and stamped a number on it, and that way I got the number and the round circle. And so then, as I usually do, I took my pieces and glued them down to each other so that my cluster could stay intact the way that I wanted them to be. And then once they were all glued down, then I went around the outside edge and edged those. And then I also, because you're going to be able to see this specimen card from the front and the back, so I took the same Distress Oxide ink and I rubbed it on the back of the card to give it a little bit of interest so it didn't look just like a copy. I really do like to age ephemera in this way with the distressed inks around the edge and even a little bit on the front, just to give it a little bit more of a vintage, earthy look. Then I had some dried flowers from another project, and I thought they might be fun to include in my specimen card as well. So I definitely liked that flower, but I wanted to find something else, and I also wanted to see whether the purple would work. That definitely was not going to work. In the end, I decided to go with the pink flower that I started with because I felt like that made the most sense with everything else that was going on, and it didn't introduce another color. Decided I liked this here, and then the pink flower added on to give it a little bit of a real botanical feel. Then I took a 5mm laminating pouch and my bits and pieces and I laminated them. Because I didn't want to waste the sheet, I also laminated a few other things that I'm going to use for a later project. Okay, then it was time to fix up the frames. So again, a little bit more of the Distress Oxide to give it a vintage feel, but also just because I feel like specimen cards, things from the earth and from the garden, should look a little grungy, a little dirty, like they really were collected outside. I wanted an additional layer of color. So even though this is the same color as Vintage Photo, it's not an oxide, it's a regular distressed ink. So it reads a little bit darker and actually a little bit redder. I like using them together because they work well together, but it gives it a slightly different color and a slightly different effect. If you're ever doing a project like this, make sure that you also do the inside edges because they will be visible and they're part of the finished piece. I wanted to make sure that I had enough of the laminated piece there for me so that I could adhere it to the front and the back of the specimen card, but not so much that it hung over the edge. And because the whole thing felt a little bit fiddly, I decided to use some blue tape just to hold it down so that I could trace around the outside with my Sharpie pen and get a really good sense of where my outside edge was. My original thought after I did this and I cut it out was to use a Fabri-Tac glue to adhere it because it's a little thicker than art glitter glue, and I thought it would be less likely to squish in and be visible. I ultimately decided against using any kind of a liquid glue and instead to use a double-sided adhesive tape because I had a whole lot more control over that than over any kind of liquid glue. Every once in a while, that corner rounder does not want to cooperate. So I'm super curious to see how everyone interprets really every single page, but especially this one. I think there are so many different ways to approach the idea of field notes. Is yours similar to the approach that I've taken here, or do you have a completely different take on it? I'd love to hear about what you did. Drop me a line in the comments and let me know. So I ended up deciding to use the skinny portion on the corners because I could get it in really tight, and then use the wider tape around the long edges. I just decided that would give me better adhesion, particularly on the corners. But since the wider tape was exactly the width of the strips, I had to use that for the outside edges. So this was definitely another part of the project where I just wanted to hurry up and get it done. I do find, particularly with this red tape, that you have to go over it to get it to adhere down, and then even then it can be really challenging to peel up. Now I did decide to peel just the one edge and get the insert placed where I wanted it, and then go ahead and peel the rest of the edges off so that I knew that it was going to land where I wanted it to land without having to fight with 4 sticky sides. So that's just a tip I would give anyone, is to get it in place with just one edge worth of glue, and then go ahead and adhere the other 3 edges down. And then once again fighting a bit with the tape trying to get it off. I did want to make sure that I had it the right way, and I did end up having to spin it around a bit. And again, getting that top edge glued down and in place and where I wanted it, and then go back and peel off the other 3 sides so that you can stick the entire thing down. So super pleased with how that turned out. And then I did create some labels for behind, and I added a label to the front, and somehow I missed filming that, and so I'm sorry I don't have that to show for you. I decided to adhere it with a small bullnose clip, but what I did, rather than adhering it to the top, I actually put a little bit of glue on the back of it and then stuck it down. And then I added the label at the top, and that was that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, please like and subscribe, and as always, make a great day.